Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Gotham Knights Season 1, Episode 8. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, obviously, the Gotham Knights are doing their things. With the Ledger, they're able to at least take down some of the armaments that are on the streets, but even then, it's like, yeah, you're taking the smallest dent out of crime, but it's like none of it's going to stop until you fully deal with kind of like the bigger symptom at play here, and that's the court. I mean, to be fair, running down these smaller leads were supposed to try and lead you closer to the court. You've taken guns off the street, but it hasn't necessarily led you closer to your goal. And I thought it was such an interesting development when we had that whole watch situation where Cullen was like saying, yeah, my watch kind of was broken and it was like a court watch. And then they all of a sudden start lining it up with other court watches. And it seems like they're all now on this specific increment that like there are three different specific times that they keep rotating to. And it turns out that this is a time and place of where the court is meeting next. Stephanie's the one that kind of ended up figuring it out. But I do love a little bit of the thing of like, oh, Courtney says something, and then you have Harper be like, oh, like kind of adds more to it. You can see it in Cullen's face, like like you guys are kind of hitting it off. He even kind of points it out later on, and even she's like, yeah, like, she's really good at what she does. And it's like, oh, so you're saying she's useful. And it's like, yeah, like that's the thing. They are so they have just as many similarities as they do differences, and that's the thing of like, because of that, like if they focus more, so at least if Harper focused more on their similarities, her and Stephanie could easily become friends. I mean, they definitely bonded last episode when Stephanie patched up her gunshot wound. So, but either way, their plan is to crash the Court of Owls meeting, and who's going to go? I figured it was going to end up being like, of course, Turner would be the main one. It's like, no, I'm going, this is kind of what I want to do. I'm the one suggesting we do this, so I should be willing to take the risk if I'm not, I should be able to be willing to take the same risk that I'm asking other people to take as well. But Duella being the one that wanted to go with him, once again, it's just, I love that dynamic of just like, if only your fathers could see you now. And so I thought that was just such an interesting thing. Because this episode definitely leans into what I thought before. I was like, I was like, that'd be so interesting if because out of anyone, it seems like Duella's the person he's kind of getting the closest to some extent. The back and forth that they kind of have, obviously it's very reminiscent of their parents' dynamic, their father's dynamic, but obviously not nearly as psychotic. But there's an ebb and flow that they have, and obviously Turner was left speechless when he saw, Duella dressed to the nines like that, And he's like, oh no, you look different. She's like, oh, is that really? He's like, she's like, no, I'll take speechless, And they really bonded, and she opened up about her mom, which we learned a little bit about her mom. It's like her mom's come up in conversation before, and in this particular episode, she references her mom being Jane Doe, which is not a character I'm that well familiar with. The name sounded familiar because doesn't she wear like a white mask or something? Because Duella had said something along the lines of, my mom was so kind of messed, like she created so many identities, she kind of doesn't know who she is anymore. So they call her, they just call her Jane Doe, which it's very befitting considering Duella's character in the comics. It's at least, I think she has a little bit of a Joker thing where, Joker, his origin's always ambiguous and stuff like that. Obviously, once again, they lean into that a lot with the Heath Ledger version of the Joker when it comes to The Dark Knight. But, once again, who her parents are, obviously, in the show, they lean to, her dad's Joker. Whereas, I think I brought this up, during my trailer discussion as well as, earlier in my reviews for the show was that she's the daughter of multiple villains, or at least claims to be, maybe she's Penguin's daughter, or maybe she's Two-Face's daughter, so on and so forth, right? So them, specifically choosing her to be the Joker's daughter, she's kind of had that alias of being the daughter of different supervillains. So it almost seemed very obviously it's 1% or 100% on purpose, kind of attributing like her mom having an identity crisis with her, which she kind of has an identity crisis of her own, having the complicated relationship with who her father was and who she is, and obviously her mom having a complete another identity crisis in a more literal sense than their case. But I mean, their case is just as literal as hers, I would, say. Okay, so I looked it up just to make sure this is who I thought it was, because I could have sworn there was a version of this character in Gotham, and there was. Because I was thinking to myself with the whole like identity crisis thing, I was like, isn't she kind of like Clayface? She's not metamorphic like Two-Face, but she's a master disguise like Two-Face. So that's why I was like, but like not with the clay sense, but I think it's just like, yeah, mimicry and disguise is kind of like her number one ability, so. Which, side note, if you've never actually seen what she looks like in the comic books, you should. It's wild. She looks just like Red Skull, which I guess she kind of has a little bit of, Mouse from, Mouse/Hush in Batwoman, how they would kind of wear prosthetics to kind of disguise themselves. I guess that's kind of, maybe that's how she does them disguise and mimicry. So maybe like Mouse is kind of a little Jane Doe-ish in Batwoman. Maybe that was kind of a little bit, once again, tangents and all that aside. Beside the point, but it was just kind of them opening up a little. I went on this long tangent, but the fact is that Duella opened up about her mom. And obviously for Turner, him not remembering much of his mom either, just because it's been so long, and he just is, especially losing them the way he did, it's just the thing of it kind of makes you eventually kind of forget. I mean, obviously it hasn't been that long, and I'm sure Bruce probably went through the same thing of like the long more. I mean, he's constantly like having his parents' faces in his face like all the time, I'm sure, in like Wayne Manor and stuff like that. But also it's like your family, you're the Waynes, your family's going to be everywhere. Turner's not in that same situation, not that we're aware of. Like I said, I've shared my thoughts about his parents being someone important, like why the court has taken such an interest in him, especially after like going through the trouble of framing him for his father's murder, because maybe at the time they didn't know who he was, or I have no idea. But either way, Duella and Turner end up sneaking into the Court of Owls like gathering, and it is them talking and gloating about like, yes, we found this map. It seems like the thing they are looking for is something called Electrum, and it's exactly what I thought. They are looking for the thing that they gave the Talon that made him live forever. They gave him that they gave him the last of that, and they've been trying to, all these years later, been trying to replicate that and find the means. And I guess Albert, who was maybe a part of the Court of Owls, maybe he was part of something that was like the beginnings of the Court of Owls. I mean, once again, the court is a legacy thing, so maybe Albert was kind of a legacy even at that point in time, but that's why they have beef with the Waynes, because the Waynes were a part of it but distanced themselves, unlike other families in Gotham. But Alan turned against them and hid probably the only means of finding the Electrum, because he probably, for the very reason why our Gotham Knights are trying to stop the court now, is just so they don't have immortality and be able to kind of run things forever the way that they have been, because that is ultimately their plan. I thought it was interesting because they were implying like the Electrum had some kind of connection to some meteorite, which immediately in my head, like the moment I'm thinking meteorite, I'm kind of like, kryptonite? I was like, I don't think so, because like when I think meteorites, I don't even immediately just straight up think kryptonite in just a more traditional Superman sense. It's always going to be forever ingrained in my head. When I think meteorites, I think of like Meteor Freak stuff from Smallville. If you never saw Smallville, it's fragments of kryptonite would give people powers in Smallville. And that's the whole Meteor Freak storylines. So that's why I was almost like they never went specific about it. So maybe it could be some other, it doesn't have to necessarily be kryptonite, but it could be specifically a meteorite that is connected to something else. I mean, obviously, I'm curious. It has to be significant in some shape or form, but Electrum, I don't think I've heard that term before. I don't know if that's like a deep, like, DC comic cut. So I looked into it, specifically what they're saying Electrum is, at least in the comics, is a special alloy, which is interesting. I thought it would, once again, because I'm thinking of it as kind of like a liquid, kind of like, once again, I'm treating it too much like the Lazarus Pit, but it's specifically an alloy. That Dr. Leviticus, that's all like some deep comic stuff, and it's all tied to the Court of Owls. Apparently, it's also tied to Mr. Freeze, because I guess it has, you know, I'm sure he went through a lot of different things trying to save Nora's life, so this is probably one of those things. Because it's specifically how it's labeled, at least my quick Google search, specifically reanimate the dead, and obviously that's the point. I mean, I guess that's the thing, like, it can be used pre-death, kind of like the whole, like, Vampire Diaries thing in that universe. I mean, a lot of vampire universes, that and Interview with the Vampire, you have to basically drink vampire blood, die with it in your veins, you can come back to life as a vampire, right? So I guess it's that type of thing of like the Talon, he had it in his system and then he died. It doesn't probably kick in until you die, and then once you're reanimated, then it kicks in your system over and over again. So just kind of an interesting little dive. Like I said, just finding out that it's specifically an alloy, I thought was kind of interesting. We'll see how they end up portraying it in the show, but either way, the whole situation of them sneaking in actually went down a lot smoother than I thought it would. I mean, first and foremost, I do think it's kind of cute when they had to hold hands. She's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You know, I thought it'd be easier to kind of play the part of like a couple. You know, everyone in here, typically, it seems like a lot of them are couples." And she's like, "I'll allow it." And it's also a thing of like, right, you don't have to come here with me. Like, I could handle this on my own. She's like, "Yeah, but then who's going to keep you alive? You?" So I think I like their back and forth, and like they are, once again, they bounce off of each other very nicely. It is kind of an interesting thing that they don't let their respective heritages get in the way too much. You know, it hasn't led to any like full blown animosity. Like, yeah, there's been comments here and there, but specifically like from Duella. But other than that, it hasn't been like full blown animosity or anything like that. I mean, even mildly any mild animosity. But what ended up causing issues was Cressida ends up being brought before the court because they want to execute her because they found out about her betrayal, which for her it's like, yes, what the court did for her was she was kind of a no one and nobody, and they gave her power and position, but it meant betraying not only Bruce but Turner. It meant betraying the family she had formed for herself, and it's like, what did it all kind of meant nothing, because especially when her last confrontation with Turner really like solidified that, because I think it's easy to face what you like. It's easier to kind of like be villainous like she was the few times we saw her, especially when she interacted with Mayor Hill. It's easy to be villainous when you don't have to stare your mistake straight in the face, because it makes all that guilt that you're burying down with all this other stuff, like your allegiances to the court because of all that they did for you, all that they made you. But it's like, it all means nothing when I had to hurt the people I care about most, the only people who care about me in this world, because I'm just a means to an end for the court. So, and she knows what they're going to do. And she ultimately ends up explaining to Turner, they killed Bruce because Bruce wanted to extend his wealth to the poor, because the court wants Gotham to stay the way it is, because the rich get richer and the poor stay poor. And it's like that divide makes it easier to control the city, because those who are down and out will have to perform crime, and they feed off and they grow stronger off of crime. So they want Gotham to stay the systematic situation that it's been in, because that's what keeps them fat and wealthy. And especially if they can keep that going forever with Gotham under their rule, with no one being able to stop them, being able to go forever and ever and ever and ever. I was actually kind of surprised to see that Cressida end up straight up dead. I was like, that sucks. Turner wanted to try and save her. He did save her from execution. He sliced off the Talon's head, but I mean, the guy comes back from a lot. Typically, even though immortality has its limitations when it comes to like getting your head lobbed off, but I'm sure the Talon's going to come back from that. But it is kind of a shame that Cressida died. It's like, damn, like Turner wanted to do a lot to save her. I mean, for him, it's like, I'm only doing this because it's the right thing to do. Plus, regardless of knowing it was all BS, he still probably has that innate, like, right, you were kind of almost like a mother figure to me. So, of course, I'm going to save you. And sadly, not being able to at that in the end. But she didn't want to tell him who the head of the court was because she's like, it's complicated. Which the moment the guy was there, I was like, it's not going to be Lincoln, is it? Lo and behold, it is. I was like, that's interesting. I mean, I guess that's how you remove yourself from the suspect list. It's like, right. I mean, that's any good villain thing of, yeah, if I get attacked, you remove me. Like, because I was already suspicious of him, like, because I was trying to think, like, when the mutants were doing their thing at, like, City Hall or whatever, I was like, didn't he have a watch? Because that's why I couldn't remember if it was him or Rebecca. I was like, didn't one of them have, like, one of those watches that is kind of connected to the court? And it's like, yeah, he removed himself from the suspect list so that I don't know why he went through such trouble. I guess I don't think his purpose is to get Rebecca and Harvey closer. Maybe there's some lone con or lone game that's there in that capacity I'm just not seeing. It seemed like he was upset when he found one of Harvey's cufflinks or whatever there. It seemed kind of upset, and obviously Rebecca could tell, like, nah, something's not right. The fact is, he's also, like, in the news going super hard after Harvey being like, yeah, the person who attacked me was Turner. And it's like, and probably even if, because Harvey did explain the whole court situation, but Lincoln didn't listen. So it's like, kind of, that should be a sign in itself, the way he goes so hard after Harvey, completely ignoring the court thing, immediately doing everything he can to point everything towards Turner. Once again, because I brought it up previously in a previous review that I think the March family might be like a Wayne family type of thing. Like, once again, I don't know, like, once again, I think there's like 5 main families in Gotham. I could be mistaken. I mean, and so, like, the reason why Lincoln's in the position he's in is probably because he's one of the, like, higher... I mean, those are probably all prominent families in Gotham, all the court people, but there's probably, like, 5 that kind of reign supreme amongst them. I don't know. Sadly, we have Turner, who got captured by the court. They have some kind of plan for him. They already seem like they were interested in him. We just don't know in what capacity. And obviously, Duella's kind of the most upset because it's like, no, we need to go back. You guys want to play hero. This is our opportunity to do something. Go play hero and save Turner. But it's like, we can't jump into the frying pan in this situation. We will get burned. But we need to, like, regroup and then come up with a plan. They need Turner alive right now, and the only one that can stop the court is us. So we can save Turner. We just have to come up with a good plan. Sadly, Stephanie isn't even aware of what's going on because she's dealing with her own demons right now. Because she found out her mom had set up ordered a prescription under her name, and she tries to bring this to her dad's attention. But her dad knows about her situation, and it's like, I think it's a combination of 2 things. One, he kind of makes it pretty clear we can't, if word got out about your mom's condition, the tabloids would run with that and they'd put your mom's business out there. It's like, we can do whatever we can to protect her, is kind of what Stephanie's coming from. But it's like, no, the only way we're helping your mom is giving her what she needs. Like, yeah, she's taking out prescriptions in your name. I do the same thing in her regard too. It's like, she does the same thing in my regard as well. So it's like, by being complicit in, like, her, like, prescriptions and stuff like that, in his mind, it's like, we're helping her. But now, my point, what I'm getting at is, first and foremost, it does seem like you're just trying to protect your own reputation because your reputation is kind of all you have, and it'll be completely tarnished if what's found out about your wife. And even then, Stephanie's mom kind of doubles down on that belief too, where it's kind of like, your dad is the the one we've got to present ourselves to be perfect, because anything less than perfect tarnishes your dad's reputation and could like undo all that he's kind of built for himself with the quiz bowl like thing. So because for Stephanie, her mom was hurt like 5 years ago, and it's like you're drowning in all of this, you're drinking alcohol, you're kind of a mess. It's already been an issue before now, but it's gotten even worse now that it's legitimately an addiction, and her father isn't doing anything to help. So once again, there's a little bit of the reputation thing, but I think maybe there is some part of kind of like this thing of, I am doing what's best for her. That seems less likely. It feels like it's mainly the reputation thing, but maybe he'll justify in his head of like, I am doing what's right by her, I am helping her, but it's like you're not actually getting her help. You're just putting band-aids on an open wound that's still bleeding. And you know, Stephanie's trying to do her best to juggle all this. It is a lot to ask a teenager to try and be the responsible in this situation, dealing with her mom, her dad, like, especially because her mom's like, right, I should have listened to my own mom or whatever, warning me about, you know, a man's first love will always be his daughter or something like that. I was hoping when you were a baby that you would grow to look more like me, but people tell me all the time how much you look like your dad. So there's extra resentment in that regard, where it's like, oh, you're daddy's little girl, you're always kind of on his side, even though he kind of picks your side over Stephanie's, because he blames Stephanie later on when her mom trashes the house, because it's like, right, who pushed her into this position, who did this to her? It's kind of being like, it's your fault, Stephanie, which it's not. It's yours for being complacent and enabling this aspect in your wife, you know? It's kind of a scary and jacked up situation. Once again, I'm not well versed enough in Stephanie's story, and about I don't know if this is the first story that's really leaned into her mom. Once again, my only experience of this character and her like situation with her father was Batwoman, which they never fully went into it too much. Just like, hey, my dad's a supervillain, and the complicated nature of what that meant for Stephanie and Batwoman's all they really got into. So we never really got into, obviously we're still early days into like whether or not he becomes a villain or not, and maybe this plays contributing factors into it. But like I said, I do feel like it's mainly the reputation thing, but maybe on some level he can justify it by being like, I do love her and I am helping her. But maybe, I mean, it's a thing where both can be true, just one might be more true than the other. Like the second of, oh, I love you and I'm trying to help in my own way, could feed into the whole, I am trying to protect my reputation, because it's all I have, because it's the only thing that makes me special and makes me stand out. Because even her mom tried to put Stephanie down by being like, oh, the only reason why you can attend the great school you're able to isn't on your own, like, it's only because of your dad. It's like undercutting her own merits of being the smart person that she is, making it like, oh, you're only there because of your dad, undervaluing her in that regard. Her mom's not in her right mind, so she's doing everything she can to cut Stephanie down, because like there's deep-seated stuff there. Then we also have the situation with Harvey, which obviously him first and foremost trying to get Cressida help. We never found out how they found out about Cressida. To be fair, the court has eyes and ears everywhere, so maybe they always kept a tight enough leash on Cressida to know, or like maybe someone sold her, because Cressida was like, please don't go through the GCPD to help me, like find somewhere else. Harvey did try to talk to a judge to get like an immunity deal for her, so I can only assume maybe that judge might be, I mean, you can't trust anybody, so maybe that judge ended up selling Cressida out, because no one else knew probably where she was hiding, but it's also like, it's not going to be that hard. Like I said, it just could easily have been the court had eyes on her the entire time. It is, because they did leave that cassette there and told Harvey to play it, and he did, and it led to him blacking out and being in control. Because earlier he had talked to Rebecca, which the timing is interesting that like Cressida got taken like after he had talked to Rebecca, when Rebecca was like, yeah, I think Lincoln might be on us, like maybe this is perfect that he knows about us, now we can just leave. It's like, no, that's going to be easier said than done considering everything. It's like, yeah, like he's not going to let you just walk away, because I mean, for one, if the court is the one behind the whole thing with Harvey, which it seems like they are, they need Harvey. He's a means to an end. And maybe, once again, maybe they do need Rebecca to kind of keep him on a tight leash without her even realizing it. Or maybe it's a thing of, I doubt she's in on it. It does seem like she is legitimately bothered and scared by Lincoln, because she talks about how monstrous he can be, that he can be a lot to deal with. So that the version of himself that the public sees isn't all there is to him. There's another side that only she gets to see at home, and maybe even Brody kind of has to deal with. We haven't really gotten into that angle of things, but yeah. Which I'm sure kind of makes a direct parallel between Stephanie and Brody in some regards, because of the whole complicated family issues thing, so. Oh yeah, just kind of a little... Well, I'll go ahead and finish my thought. I think it's interesting, too, like when Harvey woke up, his hands are covered in blood, the mask is covered in blood. I was like, okay, where are you and what did you do? And immediately my brain was like, Lincoln didn't have him kill Rebecca, did he? Or what was it that he did? Like, we still don't have any idea fully what Harvey... I mean, we have some ideas of what Harvey's been doing when he blacks out, mainly like the Mary Hill thing, but other than that, and sleeping with Rebecca, other than that, we don't know what else he's done in that time frame, so... It's definitely going to be interesting to pick up with that. But the other little thing I was about to bring up that I forgot to talk about, I thought was interesting, was that Harper gave... Carrie's like goggles an upgrade, and also like gave him a little more modernized look, because it's like, yeah, they were kind of like 10 years out of style type of situation. So I thought that was pretty dope. Kind of her being kind of your Lucius Fox in some regards, I think is kind of pretty neat. I mean, she is the tech person on the squad, so. Well, her and Stephanie, So I guess they both, but because she handled the equipment in this episode, it definitely feels like she's kind of very Lucius Fox-esque. But either way, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.